Hey everyone, welcome to Rodha. My name is KD. I have been in this test prep industry for almost 20 odd years. I am a VA-RC expert. Now, in this RC analysis, I would like to take you through different steps through which you should analyze an RC, and of course, we would also discuss how to eliminate choices better, how to capture the opinion of the author better, how to get the claim right. ये सारी चीजें करने से RC में धीरे धीरे improvement बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी हो सकती है. Abstract RCs generally are pretty painful for most of us, but अगर आप आराम से करेंगे तो RC में improvement definitely दिख जाती है. I have been writing CAT for a long time. I write it as many times as I get opportunity to do it, and I generally end up getting a decent percentile. So what I do in my sessions is I simply share my experiences in CAT so that you can benefit from them to the extent possible, and you can also imbibe those things in your own prep. So on that note, let's begin the analysis. But before that, an extremely important announcement. So if you go to our website, you would find that you can attempt up to 6 sectional tests and 2 full-length mock tests free of cost. You get to face off with the best students across the country, and I think this is an opportunity that can also help you assess yourself at this juncture. So CAT में ज़्यादा time नहीं बचा. In case you have not tried out the mocks and the sectional tests, please do it as soon as you can. And lastly, should you decide to join a mock, we also have a full-length test series. उसे अगर try नहीं किया तो please check it out on our website. Pinned comment में भी information मिल जाएगी आपको. So here's the RC. Let's read it quickly. Let's focus on what is the author's main point. Author का conclusion पकड़ना हमारा काम है. Art is not a mere copy of nature. First line itself looks like a very important point. Nature को copy करना art नहीं कहते. Art is the product of creative force. Art बनता है creative force से. Copying nature is not art. Art is created through a force known as creative force. This sentence constitutes the core of one of A.W. Schlegel's most well-known Berlin lectures. So we almost understood the author's point very clearly. Copying nature is not art. Art is not mere copy or copying nature. Art is a product of creative force. Creativity से art पैदा होता है. Art सिर्फ copy करना नहीं होता nature को. In this text, Schlegel argues in favor of modern art theory. Romantic here does not mean the way we see romantic word, right? Pyar mohabbat, it's not that thing. Romantic basically here means it was basically a belief, a philosophy that individuals are important, emotions of individuals are important. Philosophy में generally इंसानों की ज़्यादा value होती नहीं थी पहले, but romanticism said इंसानों की value है, human beings are important, individuals are important, their emotions are important. So in this text, Schlegel argues in favor of modern art theory, and then it says, in opposition to the representationalist and mimetic doctrine. Mimetic doctrines are belief systems which talk about copying things. So as we just saw, ऊपर भी यही लिखा है. Schlegel actually said he was for modern art. He was not for copying. He was against copying, right? And then it says, but this critique of the classicist formula. So classicist believed that art mimics nature. Art जो है वो nature को copy करता है. ये classicist मानते थे. Schlegel ने बोला कि ऐसा नहीं है. Copy करना art नहीं होता है. So this guy was against classicist theory. This philosophical and historical approach is distinctive of Schlegel's writing. तो पहले ही बता दिया था कि ये approach Schlegel का काफी अलग है. This is a very distinct approach of Schlegel. He did not believe in copying nature. And lends intelligibility means comprehension, understanding, and clarity. This is how philosophical writings are made longer. ऐसे ही philosophical writings को वो लंबा खींचते हैं chewing gum की तरह. Intelligibility means comprehension. Clarity जो समझने में आसान हो. एक ही बात घुमा फिरा कह रहे हैं. So what they're saying is कि Schlegel ने बोला आर्ट कॉपी करना नहीं होता, और इससे उनकी जो राइटिंग थी वो काफी क्लियर हो गई लोगों को. Okay. without eroding their philosophical sharpness. Undoubtedly, the romantic notion, romantic means philosophers who believed individuals are important, of art goes hand in hand with a re-evaluation of the concept of nature. So romantic notion of art was re-evaluation of concept of nature. नेचर के कॉन्सेप्ट को रोमांटिक नोशन जो था आर्ट का उसने रीवैल्यूट किया फिर से देखा उसको दे एग्जामिन्ड इट वंस अगेन, जो कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ नेचर था उसको. ओके. Similar to the other authors who also were inspired by Spinoza's distinction between X and Y, I would not spend time reading this. समझ तो आना वैसे भी नहीं है. Schlegel argues that everything participates in an ongoing process of creation, whereas from an empirical means based on observation or experiment, natural things are conceived as if they were dead, fixed and independent from the whole. So Schlegel ने बोला कि you know what, natural things are thought as if they are fixed, they don't change, they are dead, they are independent. What do you think he would say next? Anticipate करो. Schlegel ने बोला that natural things are thought to be dead, fixed. So he would say but they are not. पक्का बोलेगा. This means that in its purest and philosophical sense, nature is not perceptible in the same way the worldly objects are. So the Schlegel is saying that nature को आप dead या fixed की तरह देखते हो. So obviously you do not see it the way you see other things. बाकी चीजों को जैसे देखते हो natural things को आप वैसे नहीं देखते क्योंकि nature को आप dead मानते हो, fixed मानते हो. However, unlike Schelling, with his intellectual intuition, or I'm not reading this is a German phrase, time waste होगा. Schlegel did not develop an elaborate theory to give account of this different form of perception. So author says किसी ने, somebody called Schelling probably did this, but Schlegel did not do. What he did not do? He did not give a theory on to give explanation for his different form of perception. Schlegel ने चीजों को अलग तरीके से देखा, but उसके लिए कोई justification, कोई theory नहीं दी. He did not give any theory to explain his opinion, why he saw things differently. Okay. He concisely argued, succinctly means concisely, he argued that the comprehension of nature's true essence is more like a presentiment or an aesthetic contemplation than like scientific knowledge. So understanding nature is more like understanding beauty and art. It is not like understanding a scientific theory or scientific explanation. तो नेचर को समझना ऑलमोस्ट दिल से समझना है, ब्यूटी एंड आर्ट की तरह समझना है, साइंस की तरह नहीं समझना है नेचर को. बट यू माइट से बट दिस इज नॉट ग्राउंड ब्रेकिंग, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है. ऑब्वियसली दिस इज ऑल कॉमन सेंसिकल थिंग, बट व्हेन फिलोसफर से ऑल दिस इट साउंड्स वेरी ग्रैंड, बड़ा सही लगता है, कितना कुछ महान बताया. In order to realize this romantic notion of nature, one needs to comprehend or rather feel oneself as an organic whole. अगर नेचर का ये समझना है इस तरीके से, देन आपको अपने आप को ऑर्गेनिक, नेचर तो ऑर्गेनिक ही होता है, उसका पार्ट अपने आप को मानना पड़ेगा. सो ओनली व्हेन यू बिकम पार्ट ऑफ नेचर यू वुड अंडरस्टैंड इट. वन नीड्स टू अचीव सेल्फ अवेयरनेस एंड टू रिकॉग्नाइज वन सेल्फ एज फॉर्मिंग पार्ट ऑफ अ लार्जर यूनिट. पीछे अभी वही बोला यहाँ पे ऑर्गेनिक होल में, फिर से बोल रहे हैं, बिकॉज दे हैव टू फिल अप पैसेजेस ऑल्सो. This resort to a non-theoretical or non-discursive plane as an essential constituent of human knowledge was also important in Schlegel's philosophy of a language, which he already expounded in his letter on poetry. So, this resort to non-theoretical, non-discursive plane, ये जो लास्ट में लिखा गया ये important था उनके philosophy में, philosophy of language में. नाउ ये क्या है, कैसे इंपॉर्टेंट था? ओनली इफ देयर इज अ रिक्वायरमेंट विल कम बैक, अदरवाइज आप इसे नहीं समझोगे तो भी कॉम्प्रिहेंशन तो हो ही जाएगी. तो अभी तक हमने क्या सीखा वो हम एक बार एनालाइज कर लेते हैं. सो श्लेजल बेसिकली इज अ फिलोसफर एंड ही सेज आर्ट डज नॉट और शुड नॉट कॉपी नेचर. क्लासिसिस्ट मानते हैं आर्ट नेचर को कॉपी करना चाहिए, आर्ट शुड कॉपी नेचर. श्लेजल ने बोला ऐसा नहीं है, आर्ट जो है वो क्रिएटिव होना चाहिए. इट शुड बी अ रिजल्ट ऑफ क्रिएटिव फोर्स, इट शुड नॉट बी अ मेयर रेप्लिका और मेयर इमिटेशन ऑफ नेचर. उसी को थोड़ा बहुत आगे बताया है, कोई ग्राउंड ब्रेकिंग काइंड ऑफ थिंग इज नॉट देयर. इन एनी केस The philosophical or romantic notion of nature as an unfathomable unity and creative force that cannot be seen or touched, and which is obviously a direct response to some of the many questions raised by Kant's three critics, is not to be understood as a mere intellection, an empty chimera. Nature is the productive force pulsing in all living beings. Now just look at this language part here, everyone. This person is basically saying that main मुद्दा उनका ये है कि नेचर जो होता है वो प्रोडक्टिव फोर्स है हर एक इंसान के अंदर. नेचर हर एक इंसान के अंदर एक प्रोडक्टिव फोर्स की तरह मौजूद है. हाउ माइंड बॉगलिंग दैट इज. कॉमन सेंस है. नेचर इज द प्रोडक्टिव फोर्स विच इज अलाइव इन ऑल ऑफ अस. और इसके पहले की जो कहानी सुनाई, नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बट कंफ्यूज तो करता है. द रोल इज बेसिकली जस्ट टू say the very simple kind of things in a very complicated manner. इसके पहले क्या बोला? The philosophical or romantic notion of nature as incomprehensible unity and creative force, which is obviously a direct response to some of the many questions raised by Kant's three critics. Critics here, C capital S, so probably looks like work or book or something like that, is not to be understood as a mere intellectual thing. Empty chimera. Chimera is a fanciful thing. Chimera is basically a word which means something which is fanciful, does not exist in the world. कहने का मतलब ऑथर क्या कहना चाहता है यहाँ से यहाँ तक कि देखो फिलोसफिकल नोशन ऑफ नेचर जो है ना वो इतनी आसानी से समझ नहीं आता है. उसे आसानी से हमें एक आसान सा कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं समझना चाहिए. थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है. ये वो चीज़ है जो हम सब के अंदर है. इट इज़ क्रिएटिव फोर्स. तो दो लाइनें भी बोल सकते थे. फाइन. नाउ सी इवन मोर. फॉर स्लेजल, नेचर इज ऑर्गेनिक इन द सेंस दैट इट इज एन ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एंड ऑर्गेनाइजिंग प्रिंसिपल ग्रांटिंग इंटेलिजेंस टू द टोटलिटी ऑफ एग्जिस्टिंग बीइंग्स. ऑर्गेनिक मीन्स समथिंग दैट गिव्स अस इंटेलिजेंस. इट इज अ क्रिएटिव फोर्स दैट प्रोड्यूसेस इंडिपेंडेंट लिविंग थिंग्स. एंड देन इट सेज the life of which does not need any external mechanism to keep its autonomy. क्रिएटिव फोर्स, ये वो क्रिएटिव फोर्स है, नेचर वो क्रिएटिव फोर्स है जो इंडिपेंडेंट चीजों को पैदा करती है. और फिर लिखा है वो चीजें जो दूसरों पर डिपेंड नहीं करती. तो इंडिपेंडेंट का मतलब क्या होता है? इट इज सिंपली राइटिंग द सेम थिंग अगेन एंड अगेन सो दैट यू फिल अप पेजेस. द ऑथर सेज, यू नो व्हाट, नेचर इज अ क्रिएटिव फोर्स that produces independent living things which don't depend on others. That's the definition of independent living things. Then it says, for it only depends on its inner natural power to live. That's exactly what independent things do. They depend on themselves. अगर वो दूसरे पर डिपेंड करेंगे तो फिर इंडिपेंडेंट थोड़ी ना कहलाएंगे, डिपेंडेंट कहलाएंगे. कॉमन सेंस. At this point, Schlegel mentions the astrological doctrine that claim that even the tiniest atom is a mirror of the universe. ऐसे कुछ रैंडम सा स्टेटमेंट दे दिया फिलोसफिकल साउंड करने के लिए. सो लेट्स क्विकली रिवाइज क्या बोलना चाहते हैं ये भाई साहब. कुछ ज़्यादा बड़ी बातें नहीं करी है. Schlegel believed that art is not just copying nature, but it's a creative force. Then he talked about nature is always creating and that we can't fully understand it. Unfathomable. Just by looking at physical objects, we need to feel connected to it, organic whole. Schlegel's idea that nature is an invisible, powerful force that is part of everything alive. This was different from earlier ideas that saw nature as fixed. Right? And last May, he did not develop a detailed theory, but believed understanding nature involves more intuition and feeling than scientific analysis. So more or less यही सारी बातें तो हैं पैराग्राफ के अंदर. Now we can look at the questions one by one and see what are the answers. So question number 5 says, which of the following if true, so it's a critical reasoning question, you have to assume all options are true, would most weaken means you can create a shadow answer, Schlegel's concept of nature as an unfathomable unity. We have to attack the idea that nature is unfathomable unity. Nature unfathomable unity है, इसे हमला करना है, contradict करना है. So हमें एक ऐसा ऑप्शन ढूंढना है that says नेचर इज नॉट अनफैथमेबल यूनिटी. नेचर अनफैथमेबल यूनिटी नहीं है. आप इसे नहीं समझ सकते, ऐसा नहीं है. ये समझ में भी आता है और यूनिटी भी शायद नहीं है. समथिंग लाइक दैट. सो लेट्स सी विच ऑप्शन डज दैट. Scientific advancements have led to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of natural phenomena. So it's about interconnectedness. Is it saying that nature is understandable unity, or is it saying nature is not unfathomable unity? कुछ इस तरह का नहीं. डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग तो हो गई है, बट किसकी? नेचुरल फेनोमेना की, राइट, नेचर की नहीं. हमें तो नेचर को अटैक करना है. ओके, नेचर ही समझ नहीं आता, हमें बोलना अरे समझ आता है, समथिंग लाइक दैट. Different cultures throughout history have developed diverse artistic styles inspired by their specific environment. Nothing about nature समझ आ सकता है, nature को समझा जा सकता है. Many artists have successfully captured the essence of nature. Essence of nature ही capture कर लिया. That means we can understand nature. This can attack. The human mind inherently categorizes and separates elements of the natural. So, does it mean nature can be understood? Nothing like it. Therefore, only one possible answer, and that is option third. Now this question is one of those where the options are very long. Generally we see long options and we think that this is going to be a hard question, but remember, shorter options generally are harder to eliminate. Longer options को eliminate करना आसान होता है. So longer options better, shorter options probably harder to eliminate. Look at the question. Which of the following statements is the author most likely to agree with? Means we have to find an option that goes with the author's main idea. So anything that contradicts is out and we'll get the right answer. Schlegel's philosophical conception of nature was a direct response to the questions raised in Kant's three critics. So Schlegel's philosophical conception of nature was a direct response to the questions raised in Kant's three critics. So the way Schlegel's philosophical conception of nature was done, or the way Schlegel understood nature, it was a direct response. Schlegel ने जैसे nature को देखा वो एक direct response था to the questions जो कांत ने raise किया था three critics में. Is that true? Let's first find out. Now it looks familiar because you have read it. It says in any case, the philosophical or romantic notion of nature as an unfathomable unity and creative force, and which is obviously a direct response to some of the many questions raised by Kant's three critics. Now it looks like it is what Schlegel's main point is, or Schlegel's main theory is. But remember, the author has only talked about it in the context of philosophical or romantic notion of nature. So the way philosophical or romantic notion of nature is, the way philosophy or romances see the nature is what the author is talking about here, not the way Schlegel sees, and especially not at all the author means that it was a response to the three questions. So response to the three questions, we have no information, no logic to really answer it, and therefore option 1 doesn't look like a great choice at all. Author may disagree, author मना कर सकता है कि मैंने तो ऐसा नहीं बोला था. So we can eliminate. Option 2 says Schlegel's resort to a non-theoretical or non-discursive plane of knowledge was a key aspect of his overall philosophical system. You can see it says his overall philosophical system, right? So was Schlegel's resort to non-theoretical and non-discursive plane of knowledge a key aspect of his overall philosophical notions? Let's see. तो हमें देखना है कि ये जो बात की गई है about non-theoretical and non-discursive plane, ये Schlegel की philosophy का important हिस्सा था कि नहीं. This resort to a non-theoretical or non-discursive plane as an essential constituent of human knowledge was also important in Schlegel's philosophy of language. So very clearly, it is something that Schlegel thought is important, and therefore, this very clearly is something the author would agree with, or rather Schlegel would agree with. So second statement can be a good choice. Schlegel's ideas on art and nature represented a re-evaluation of Aristotle's poetics and its influence on representationalists' doctrines in aesthetics. Schlegel's के जो आइडिया थे आर्ट एंड नेचर पे, वो री-इवेल्युएशन थे एरिस्टोटल के पोएटिक्स के. सो was Schlegel's ideas on art and nature a re-evaluation of Aristotle's ideas? Mentioned तो है कुछ इस तरह का in the beginning, but let's see. Art is not a mere imitation. This sentence, crystallizing one of the fundamental ideas of German romantic aesthetics, constitute the core of A.W. Schlegel. Fine. In this text, Schlegel argues in favor of modern art theory, in opposition to the representationalist and mimetic doctrine that go back to Aristotle's poetic and conceive the work of the artist as that of a craftsman. So, was he evaluating Aristotle's poetics? Was he re-evaluating? ऐसी कोई information तो वहाँ पे mentioned नहीं है. Nothing like that is mentioned there. So we can very well eliminate. There's nothing about re-evaluation of Aristotle's Poetics. Poetics is work. It's written with capital P. Schlegel's critique of the art imitates nature formula was more nuanced, means there are very fine differences, very small differences, small layers than the passage suggests. Will the author agree with this, that Schlegel's critique of art imitates nature was more nuanced? We have no logical information to even suggest it, so very clearly we can eliminate this also, and the correct answer has to be option 2. Let's move on. So this question clearly is a CR question. It says which of the following if true. So you have to assume all options are true. Please don't look for these options in the passage. इनको सच मानना है, passage में नहीं ढूंढना है, you know that. And then we have to find would pose the greatest challenge to the passage's central claim. So what is the passage's central claim? We find that, and then we find something that will prove the claim wrong. So the claim is that Schlegel, a philosopher, said that art should not copy nature, art should be result of creative force. So Schlegel ने ऐसा बोला, Schlegel ने वैसा बोला, right? We have to claim, so we have to counter claim. We have to challenge, we have to say no, he did not say that. Whatever is being said, he did not say that. He said something else. So any option that says whatever this guy said is not right, whatever this guy said is not great, whatever this guy said was not that path breaking, it was not something which was mind blowing. मतलब कुछ इस तरह का, something that says whatever this guy did or said इतना great नहीं था, was not that great. We have to challenge it. Evidence that Schlegel's ideas on art and nature were heavily influenced by earlier Neoplatonist philosophers who also emphasized creativity over imitation. So this option, if true, means that Schlegel's ideas were influenced by some other philosopher. So does it mean his ideas were not great? He was not great. His ideas were not true. No, just that he was influenced. So not a very great challenge. A demonstration that Schlegel's conception of nature as an unfathomable unity was directly inspired, again the same problem, by Spinoza's metaphysical system. So even if he was inspired, does it mean he was not doing a great job? No, he might be inspired, but he might be again coming up with something very great. So it doesn't really challenge, it simply says he was inspired. Proof that Schlegel's critique of the art imitates nature formula was anticipated by 18th century thinkers. Anticipated means 18th century thinkers had already thought about it. Now suppose the question proves, or the option proves, that some other philosophers had done this work already. Inspire होना एक और चीज़ है, but किसी और ने already कर दिया, ये अलग चीज़ है. So suppose the paragraph says that Wright brothers invented aircraft and they flew for the first time, and one option says that they were inspired by XYZ scientist, they were inspired by ABC design by Leonardo da Vinci. Fine. Does it mean their ideas were not great, their work was not great? ऐसा नहीं है. But suppose one option says somebody had built an aircraft in 17th century, in 3000 BC, then very clearly their work is not that great, gets challenged. So very clearly if this is true, then it challenges the work directly. So it can be the answer. Historical accounts showing that Schlegel's aesthetic theories were not as radically opposed to classical doctrines as the passage suggests. So even if we can prove that Schlegel's ideas were not as opposed to some other theory, does it mean his theory was not great, his work was not great, he did not do a good job? No. किसी और theory के against नहीं भी है ज़्यादा, तो क्या हुआ? The work can still be considered great, it does not challenge, and therefore the correct answer has to be option 3. Now the next one says, again a CR question, all of the following if true would support Schlegel's notion of nature as an unfathomable unity except. So the moment you see all of the following, it means not, least, except is likely to come later, right? So we already knew it, that except would be there. So we have to find what? We have to find 3 statements that support the idea that nature was ununderstandable unity. Nature was unity and it was ununderstandable. Nature एक unity है, उसे समझना बहुत मुश्किल है, मतलब practically impossible है. 3 option would say yes it is true, 1 option would either say it is wrong or it would be irrelevant. Let's see. Scientists discover that all living beings share a common underlying life force. If this is true, then obviously Schlegel's idea of nature being unfathomable unity is true. So this can't be the answer. Philosophers argue that empirical observations can never fully capture the essence of nature. If essence of nature cannot be understood, it is unfathomable. Unfathomable means you can't understand it. तो अगर ये true है तो ये भी इस बात को support करता है. Cannot be the answer. Supports. Researchers find that natural phenomena often display a predictable and mechanistic order. If this is true, then you can understand natural phenomena, you can understand nature. तो फिर ये तो weaken कर देगा. Mystical traditions emphasize the interconnectedness of all elements in the universe. So unity again is there. So this will also support. So if you use shortcut, how do we do it? We have to find three options where unfathomable unity is present. One does not have it. So option 1 talks about unity. Second talks about ununderstanding it, unfathomable. Fourth talks about unity. Third talks about being very easy to understand. Therefore, the correct answer is third. So here's the